Hello everyone, this is Taylor with Rural Gorge Anglers in Canyon City, Colorado, your only Orvis Endorsed outfitter on the Arkansas River and oldest fly shop in southern Colorado. We're here to talk today about the Arkansas River in all its glory right now, just fishing off the chart. We have seen even an increase in productivity, which isn't typical. After the stonefly hatch, typically we see a little, a small period of time where hatches kind of pull down a bit, and we're kind of waiting for PMDs and yellow sallies to really start kicking. However, we really had no lapse of hatches. We've moved smoothly from stonefly hatches straight into really good yellow sally activity. Seeing quite a few yellow sallies out there, as well as some really prolific PMD hatches already. It's pretty early for that, but we're already seeing PMDs, and we think it's just because of really good water conditions. We're still hanging around 1400 to 1600 on any given day, which is typical. If you look at the 53-year average on our flow charts, you can see that the flows right now this year are really dead on the 53-year average, even with the 10 years of drought factored in for the last decade. So, flows are just phenomenal right now, very manageable. Obviously, still a lot of edge fishing going on. Fish are still tucked against the edges in that first 4 or 5 feet. And then during PMD hatches, we can see fish move out just a little bit, but still very manageable from the shore. Not a lot of wading necessary. So get out there and have a lot of fun, whether you're walk wading or floating. And floating is just a phenomenal thing to do right now as well. But I would say, equally productive whether you're floating or walk wading, just kind of different tactics there. We're still seeing a lot of activity on streamers, so don't forget your streamer box. Big dries are, of course, still producing. There's still a few bigger stoneflies kicking around, but not an active hatch period for the bigger stoneflies. Plenty of yellow sallies, like I said, are micro stoneflies, PMDs, and we'll begin to see some red quill activity, especially subsurface, here very shortly. But if I were to rank, the fishing right now is just a 10 out of 10, if not better. We've seen, the activity stay fairly productive since post runoff in the last week of June, or third week of June, and I don't see it slowing down with our great water right now. Typically in the drought years we'll see a slowdown just because of increase in water temperature. The reason being that with lower flows and higher air temperatures, obviously during the heat of the day, you've got big downturns in activity just because the water column heats so quickly. But now that we're maintaining a 53-year average flow for July being around that 1500 range, maybe 1600, the water column just doesn't warm up as fast, and we're seeing water temperatures in the mid 50s to high 50s, sometimes in the low 60s, but not in the high 60s like we can see in lower water years, which is just phenomenal. Keeps the trout much more active, keeps the hatches more active, throughout the day. So really not a lot of nymphing going on out there. We're still focusing on dry dropper. Like I said, terrestrials are beginning to kick around, so hopper patterns will work for you. Still throw in a variety of stonefly dries up top for dry dropper, just because they're very buoyant, hold up weight well, and they're very visible for people. My number one big dry right now has been this Henry's Fork stone with that tan body. Fish really seem to start or are looking for that tan. Another really good tan yarn body with the foam um, thorax is the foam dome. The foam dome has been really productive pattern, very visible with that poly chartreuse wing. Another really good kind of crossover pattern from attractor to terrestrial is the Fat Boy McKnight. This has been a really good tan underbody pattern, very visible and extremely buoyant. If you're going to go out there and fish a bug on its own, you know, with exception of the PMDs and the Yellow Sallies, which we're going to get to next, you can also drop a small dropper off these, but the smaller double Dutch bugs in the peacock and tan bodies, and also the goofballs in the yellow and chartreuse have been fishing really well. Yellow and chartreuse bodies. Again, you can throw a dropper under those, but you know, typically we're fishing those just as attractor dries and doing really well prospecting with them on the edges. Moving into our hatch matching dries, our adults, starting with our pale morning duns, the PMDs. I really like the Sprout PMD, just a phenomenal pattern. Quigley's Hackle Stacker in a size 16 is another really good pattern. And then getting into the Yellow Sally or the Yellow Sally adults, I really like the Clown Shoe. The Clown Shoe has been a really productive pattern for us. The Headlight Sally in the size 16 now. We've kind of moved to the 16s rather than the 14s as the Yellow Sallies have been around for a little bit. If you're going to throw a dropper, keeping with that Yellow Sally thought, the Sloan Sally underneath the dry is a good one, or if you want a nymph with it, you know, equally as good. The Biot Epoxy Stonefly in the size 16 for a Yellow Sally. And fish are eating bigger stoneflies as well if you want a nymph, but typically you just haven't needed to. A good attractor kind of crossover nymph is Tox Go-To Pheasant Tail. That's been a good one. Any number of hare's ears have been good as well for Yellow Sally imitations. Getting into PMDs, the Micro Mayfly, this is Mike Mercer's pattern, has been a really good one. Our go-to for picky fish on PMD droppers and emergers has been this Magic Fly PMD, a little bit slider profile. That's been a really good pattern. We've also been fishing some caddis attractor nymphs, more caddis larvae than anything, but more tan and chartreuse than just pure chartreuse. The GTI caddis, a phenomenal fly, been really good. And they're nice and heavy. We tie them nice and heavy here. The CZ caddis, tungsten CZ caddis on that 24.99 SPBL. It's a really good fly. In the streamer category, I'm still focusing for my top fly, and you know, I always go tandem rig. The Gongas in both tan and olive have been my go-to patterns up front. They're heavy, they push a lot of water, they hold water, and they get fish's attention. Then I'm dropping, you know, either a small micro tungsten woolly booger, that little crystal tungsten woolly booger, or this little near enough sculpin has been really good underneath in the olive. So those are kind of some patterns to look at, but if you come in the fly shop, we've got just a ton of custom patterns that you might want to look at that are specifically for the Arkansas. You know, also if you have any questions about the Arkansas tailwater, we'd be happy to answer those for you. It really hasn't come back yet. It's still pretty high. Smaller riverbed down there. There are people catching fish down there, but not nearly as productive as the upper river. I mean, not even by a long shot. So until, you know, we see flows diminish on the tailwater, our suggestion is to focus on the upper Arkansas. And there's just so much water to be found on the upper Arkansas, you know, close to 40 public miles in Bighorn Sheep Canyon. That's our suggestion for you. If you do have any questions, feel free to call the Fly Shop toll free 888-994-6743. We do have a few available guide days left in July, so if you want to get out here and fish, during arguably one of the best time periods on this river for dry dropper and streamer activity, we suggest getting on the horn and getting a hold of us. You can also book online on our website at www.ruralgorgeanglers.com. If you go to the guided trips page, it'll show you availability. You can book right there online. So do give us a call if you have any questions. Again, we look forward to seeing you in the fly shop and on the river soon. And thanks so much for watching. Again, this is Taylor from Rural Gorge Anglers, www.ruralgorgeanglers.com, toll free 888-994-6743. Have a great, safe day on the water.